Well, enough delay here on turn 6. After a brief exchange of artillery fire, which the Catholics started, disrupting things a little bit, the Swedes push forward. Now you can see, coming out of the woods, they're not in great shape there. First of all, open order here. They didn't make an attack there. They got formation broken there. They got an extra unit coming in. But here they managed to push in. These two units destroyed a heavy that they softened up with the artillery, and now they're getting ready to just keep pushing forward. It looks like the Catholic infantry is breaking. Their line is thinner, and I don't think this is going to be much of a battle if that falls, because they've already kind of won the Swedes have kind of won the Cav battle over here. And this one, it looks like they have the advantage on. This may not be a well-balanced battle, although it definitely does interest me a great deal the way it's kind of set up and played out in the early parts. We'll see. We've seen other battles which have gone very differently from how they historically went, so maybe this one will too. I'm trying to figure out a way to get these Catholics out of here. They keep kind of bouncing around. Anytime I'd turn my back and run, it would have offered an option for a charge, a counter charge, which looked too ugly. So eventually I just decided, fine. Other times I had decided this and hadn't been able to roll it. I'm going to charge them. And there was only one unit that was really causing me a problem, but it means a charge from everything. Well, everything charged, and that more or less finished off the Catholic Cav here. We still got the leader, and there's still a couple of units kicking around. One got destroyed. But, you know, it's really tough because that unit was protected by additional units which could then countercharge in. Of course, they weren't hitting the rear, which would have been a significant difference. And now this poor infantry's turned around, and it keeps playing ping pong back and forth. I just want to release it over to those guys, but I feel like I should be in command to do that. He's of no use to the cavalry unit. Well. Interesting little situation. The Swedes decide to punt over on their left flank and recuperate these guys. That throws things over to De Worth. De Worth fails to get into charge in the first action, but manages in the second. He doesn't get a continuation. His charge, he just inches forward with everything. Ooh, I've got an attack here I got to take care of that I haven't yet. I've got 2 units actually, so that's kind of bonus. But everything here as it moved forward got countercharged, but every single case, the Swedes were knocked back. Sort of a mixed result. Neither side's happy with it. Neither side got, a serious win. The Swedes are in a little worse shape than the Catholics, but, both sides have to kind of recuperate at this point to be able to launch an attack there. I've got to take care of this sucker. And then we'll go over to the last action, which is the Swedes over there. And the Swedes managed to get only one reform action, and that pushes us up to 10 a.m. Ready to rock into the next turn. I'm glad I finished this up because now I can go to bed without... I don't like leaving in the middle of a turn. It's tough to pick up with the activation sequences. This isn't a trivial game. Kind of have to study the board, and sometimes I screw up when I do that. Oh my, we get stuck at the beginning of turn 7. Worth, I trigger him off and he can't get out of his charge. The first round of it I wasn't too upset with. I was hitting a lot of units in the back. They weren't great odds, but I still had +1 in each case, which is probably not too bad. But then that sort of disintegrated. My units over here didn't get into good shape, and then these are getting forced further and further, and now Worth's command is really disorganized, which means if Douglas can get his act together, he might be able to launch an attack that can really do a lot of harm, or at least he can set up his defense again. Worth's still in charge and still has units, so he can't fall into like an auto rally. He didn't try for a rally though. He just because a rally is pretty painful for Cav. What happens with a rally is they can't countercharge. So that leaves them pretty helpless in the face of enemy Cav. Swedish attack in the center is beginning to make some ground, pushing, that's Swedes in there, pushing their way through the line, forced another gun out of the way. That's all that the Catholics have in terms of their light guns. their artillery, however you want to put it. They have some guns integrated with units, but that's not what I was counting there. Although it's actually probably more effective. Over here, I stayed in charge for one round, which meant I had to move forward, then dropped into rally, reforming some of the stuff. Have to get out of there, but I have no idea how. It's so hard to disengage in this game in any circumstances. The infantry are the big heavy formations, especially these guys. The big double hex units. It's like taking phalanxes in SPQR. They're tough to maneuver. They have a really hard time getting out of a fight. But here we've got the cav, which just can't turn its back. If it's got full movement, if it's all healed up, it can turn and run away as long as the enemy can't countercharge them. But the countercharge threat is so high that basically you're handing something that the enemy would have to go into charge to be able to do to you if you weren't moving. But you're in there, you're close to them, you try to run away, they go for you. It's an ugly, ugly choice that you're faced with. We have a Swedish cav over here launched into a charge, and they mostly have wiped out the cav. Rally is just such a terrible position to be in. We've got the leader gone, we've got, actually they have wiped out all the cav. But they did run up against this infantry unit straight into it, bang, full attack on it. Basically what I'm seeing is, I don't think the leader's even going to come back. This is just going to try to run back to its unit. It doesn't make sense for there to be a colonel there. So I'm going to actually take this rally marker off. And we're down a formation for the Catholics, essentially. That's going to be a bit of a problem. I've got this reserve cav that I can throw over to help screen against these guys. But that's not enough to handle the full cav wing, even though this is pretty damaged. It's higher quality stuff than that is. And we're seeing here the Swedes seem to be winning the cav battle here, and they're winning the central infantry battle. This is just all going in their favor in so many ways. Catholic center switches into charge formation. Largely, they had firing opportunities, and you can see they broke, they actually destroyed one unit, melted it using salvo fire. Didn't get a fire back. But, I'm wondering what's going on with this. This guy must have gotten chased away by something. I don't remember when. The main reason they went into charge was to launch a couple of cav attacks on these formation broken infantry. Now, these weren't great attacks. They were a +1 each, and you can see the cav was repulsed by it. The hope was to break up that formation a little bit and make it tougher on the Swedes, but they have such density there that I don't know, there's not really a lot of hope towards doing anything there, except that these units are kind of aligned so that they couldn't move forward as well. But, yeah, I think that Catholic center is just crumbling no matter what, and in a sense, leaving those formation broken units was blocking the Swedes from moving forward. Breaking them up would have been maybe worse than what happened. I don't know. Anyway, bad choice, right? Didn't even get a continuation off the charge, which is one of the advantages, being able to kind of rally things together, maybe swing and reposition units. That didn't happen either. And I'm running really low on numbers here. This guy, since he was part of another command that already went, I'm not allowing to move this turn. But from now on, he's going to move in conjunction with that center wing. All we got left is trying to rally this Swedish left flank cav. So the Catholics had only 2 wings, both in charge formation orders. The infantry went first. They were unable to really push things aside. They did drop down to make ready to try to reform themselves a little bit, so maybe they got another chance at hitting things. What was more interesting, jump over here very briefly, the Swedes, this isn't interesting. Having trouble because they're moving forward, still under charge. They couldn't get out of it into the river there, stream, and it's just breaking up their formation. This infantry may get away because they can't reform and attack it the way they'd like to, or at least hedgehog it. But over here, Worth's command, stayed in charge as well, much against his will. The only interesting and good thing that came of it was they kind of managed to slip an attack in here and hedgehog this, but they got the unit destroyed by firepower, or else chased off. I don't remember which. And some of the counter charges that happened due to their movement caused them real problems. So they're just kind of disintegrating there. And it's kind of like the entire Catholic army is just slowly chewing, getting chewed up here without really feeling like they have a chance. It's kind of a pity because there was such interest in this scenario at the beginning for me. One bright spot for the Catholics, though, is they managed to knock Tortenson out in one of the little cav battles somewhere up here. I don't remember. And there we hit the end of 8. I gotta make a check on Tortenson on the chance that he comes back. Otherwise, he's not coming back. Otherwise, I got a problem, which is that I've got to figure out who the senior wing commander is and promote him, and then get a second up there who's probably a colonel. I got this thing here. I don't know what that attaches to. But I guess the biggest thing that happened is over here, the Swedes kind of trying to push their way through. They've got, it's like wiggling a rotten tooth, really. I mean, they've got this definite injection in here, and they're firing in the rear. They did a reform action eventually, but they're firing in the rear of this unit, trying to get it out of the way so that it doesn't kill the hedgehog before, It looks like the Swedes are going to take the hill no matter what. It's just, let's do it with as little damage as possible. And having switched out of charge means that they didn't line up a shot on the end of this. Got some routes to take care of. Be back after that. Alright, so it turns out Wittenberg's next in line. Goldstein's his replacement. So we've got kind of a change in focus as to where the leadership is. That's fine. I've got plenty to do back here, and those will be useful if I can bring them in. But it was kind of useful having Tortenson down here in the main line of the fighting. Of course, that's how he ends up getting killed. Alright, on to turn 9. Alright, De Worth opens up the 9th turn. Not just, he continues his charge. Not terribly in his favor, but it worked out pretty well. He drove a couple of units into the ditch here. And then he did have one get repulsed by this formation broken unit. But then he managed to slip into a received charge and get another continuation after that. So his force is beginning to look like it's stronger than the Swedish, and he's across the stream with some units. This counts as being on kind of both sides, because it can turn around and not get penalized, which is kind of weird, but whatever. But yeah, it looks like he's got the Swedes he's got the advantage on the Swedes right now, and they're going to have some trouble on that flank. See how quickly that thing comes into play. Well, the main effect of the Imperial Center was they were able to force this unit to launch an attack on the rear of this unit by spinning some cav around in good order and threatening their own rear. Cav were already in place, so they didn't cause a possibility of a hedgehogging. The received charge formation or orders meant that there was no chance of doing that in any sense. However, the attack failed. They got repulsed back here. It did disrupt this unit. It makes it so it still needs to reform. It had just reformed and then got hit. So that kind of shook up the Swedish position a little bit. But then when it came down to the truth, without that need, this cav did not attack the flank of that unit, which would have been just as effective. But the odds were lower. Basically, these were low, medium odds attacks. Like, I think this was a +1. This would have been a 0. No matter what. It was just a question of, hey, clearing this out of the way would get me out of the range of that. It would do me some good, loosen things up here, but that hasn't happened. Alright, we only have one more thing left, though, because we lost the Swedish leader of the center. So all we got is their cav, which really wants to reform. And they grabbed themselves one reform action, which put them in somewhat better shape. But for the most part, this has not been a good turn for the Swedes. They didn't gain any ground, and they're kind of being frozen here now. They're probably ahead by enough to have a slight victory as it stands, and there's a lot of battle left. But that initial edge is starting to turn against them is all I'm sort of feeling, especially at least on this side. And over here is getting kind of clumped. So it's becoming more and more down to the command over here where they did win. And I forgot to move these guys. Pretty sure. They actually got 2 actions, I think. Push them to there. So they're getting away. That'll bring another unit into play. All right, this one's going up. It's not gonna be over in any time real soon. That's pretty apparent.